Hey, you awesome folks! Thanks for taking this journey of discovery with your guide, Keith Haney. You're listening to the Becoming Bridge Builders podcast, your favorite podcast for everything from racial reconciliation to education innovation, justice reform, and leading change in the 21st century. This podcast is for people who love to be challenged with difficult topics, but want practical solutions to solve these challenging issues. Becoming Bridge Builders makes change possible. Each week on the podcast, Keith invites innovative thought leaders to share how they are building bridges in their area of expertise. You will hear breakthrough ideas and concepts that are changing the world. He's featuring guests who are best-selling authors, leaders at Microsoft, entrepreneurs, leading educators, professors, lawyers, and so many more. Listen in to learn how you can be the bridge to the change you are seeking.
Welcome to Becoming Bridge Builders, where we explore the stories shaping our world and the voices driving change. Our guest today is someone who has spent more than 3 decades helping leaders navigate the challenges of a challenging aging workforce. Dr. David DeLong is a researcher, author, and speaker whose work has influenced organizations from MIT to Harvard and beyond. In his latest book, Hidden Talent: How to Employ Refugees, the Formerly Incarcerated, and People with Disabilities, David turns his focus to one of the most pressing issues in today's labor market: how businesses can tap into marginalized talent pools and build stronger, more inclusive teams. Drawing on 4 years of in-depth research, David brings practical insights and real-world strategies to the table, lessons that can help any organization rethink how it recruits, retains, and empowers overlooked talent. Stay with us as we dive into the stories behind hidden talent and learn how unlocking potential in unexpected places can transform the future of work. We welcome David to the podcast.
It's great to be with you, Pastor Keith.
Pleasure to be with you too, Dave. I'm looking forward to this conversation. This is one of the topics that I, in my own experience in the church, have tried to work with. We had an individual who was hiring incarcerated people and had a whole business model to get those people back into the workforce, because a job has a way to impact and really influence and change the trajectory of someone's life, especially those people coming out. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's start with my favorite question. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
My mother, it actually came from my mother, who taught me to, and through her own role modeling, to always be prepared for change in life and to be able to cope with and manage change. It's ironic that this has ended up being my field of study around change management, but my mother was someone who had to get divorced when she was about 40 years old, and she had to go to work to put her kids through school and college and raise the family. And she got married again at age 78, very late in life, and she just modeled continual change and evolution through her life. She was an alcoholic, and she had to stop drinking and join AA for 40 years without a slip, just amazing. And she just was such a role model for me and just taught me how important coping with and managing change is throughout your life.
Well, it's funny how sometimes the advice becomes the blueprint for our lives, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm curious, as you think about your journey, and we seem to be about the same age, I'm curious, who are some people in your life who served as mentors or maybe inspiration on your journey?
That's an interesting question, Keith, because I had one of the sadnesses in my life is I never had sort of a traditional mentor, someone who seemed to take you under their wing and be the great role model. I never had one of those, but what I did have is a lot of people in my life who, at various points, whether it's family, friends, or professors, or bosses early in my work career, who were very helpful and who I knew cared about me as a person and cared about my success, and they had advice, and they just modeled behavior, some of which I wanted to replicate, but some of which I didn't. That wasn't perfect. But so I unconsciously probably was always looking for people to learn from. That's I guess the message I take away when I think about mentoring is who can I learn from in my career, even if I don't buy the whole package that they're proposing. One piece of advice I got that I learned long ago was strong people have strong weaknesses. And that never surprises me. When somebody who's brilliant in one part of their life, turns out you find out they have some real weaknesses and some areas that they really struggle with. And they may be interpersonal. It may be hard to get on with them or something, but they are brilliant in some other way. And we can learn from that, but we can also forgive them. We can always have some grace for accepting some of the weaknesses that they demonstrate, even though they can add a lot of value in our lives in other ways.
It's funny you mention that, because I've also noticed that even the things that you have as a strength can be a struggle for you. For me, it's
Sure.
I learned to be much better at public speaking, but the anxiety before each talk, each sermon. My wife says, we joke about this, is like, don't be around him on Saturday night before church on Sunday, because he's just not pleasant to be around. But no one would know on Sunday morning that I'm dealing with nerves the entire until I get in the pulpit and start the presentation, whatever I'm doing. Up until that point, the nerves are just like eating me alive.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And you're speaking to another speaker, so who's been through this, and it's it never goes away. But there's a saying, if you weren't nervous as a speaker, you didn't care.
Right.
The nerves is a sign that you really care about impacting your audience and communicating a message that will add value.
Right.
So I totally understand that.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. So Doug, I'm curious. It's fun. I'm sorry, David.
No problem.
You spent 30 years researching workforce trends. What inspired you to focus your latest work on marginalized talent pools, like refugees, formerly incarcerated people, and people with disabilities?
Two things, really, Keith. One is I've been speaking to executive audiences for over 20 years about solutions for critical skill shortages. I wrote several books before this one on, one was called Lost Knowledge, Confronting the Threat of an Aging Workforce. And then another one was called High Impact Talent Management. And these books looked at the problems, the changing demographics of the workforce. The fact that we have retiring baby boomers, we have fewer young people coming into the workforce, and so on. We have a number of factors. Fewer men of working age actually participating in the workforce, age 18 to 54. That's a trend that's been going on for 20 years. We didn't understand it, but I've been speaking to executives. Okay, what do you do about this? And I continually heard from them, from the executives, I just can't find people who will show up and pass a drug test and, be there for work. And I've been listening to this for more than 20 years, and I've been proposing some solutions. My wife, about 8 years ago, went to work for an organization, an agency here in Massachusetts that works with young adults coming out of prison and gangs. And we saw firsthand the challenges these young people faced in starting a career when they already at age 20 or 22 had a criminal record and had spent time in prison. And we developed some great empathy because my wife was around these people, these young adults all the time, and loved them and just found them fantastic folks. But we saw the challenges they faced. And I'm really a storyteller. That's the way I view myself, as I've been a writer and a speaker through much of my career. And I love telling stories as a way to engage people with practical solutions. So I thought there must be companies that have cracked the code of trying to employ these marginalized workers, in this case, formerly incarcerated, also people with disabilities, and refugees or immigrants, people who are foreign-born workers. And these are three groups that face major explicit barriers to employment. And I wanted to tell stories that would engage managers. And I'm aware this workforce field is actually also, it can be mind-numbing to a busy manager, a person who's got a busy job. They just don't want to hear about all the technicalities of it. So I said, how can I write a book that will keep people engaged with stories, and impart lessons that will be very practical in how can we get started? How can we tap these talent pools? Because the other major talent pool, traditional talent pools, are continuing to shrink.
I love that. As you think about the title of your book, I just finished a book too myself, and I think I agonized more so over the title than anything else. Tell us what the phrase hidden talent means to you, and why is it so important, especially in today's labor force?
Sure. Well, again, executives, managers, hiring managers are always looking for good people. By good people, people willing to learn, who can learn, who may bring some skills to the job, and who will have a work ethic, will show up, are committed to being there. The notion of hidden talent was these talent resources exist in plain sight. They're there, but we don't see them. We don't think about, I need this CNC machinist, or I need this entry level operator, or an entry level research technician, somebody to work in a lab, or somebody to work in retail. And I don't even think about what if somebody who has was formerly incarcerated but has turned their life around. They could be a potential employee. Instead, I've got HR systems that screen them out. They don't even get an interview because of the applicant tracking systems, the technology we have now that reads resumes and will screen people out before they even get a chance. Or someone with level 1 autism, who's very high functioning, but would be very quirky in an interview, in a traditional interview. And all these folks are, again, they're in plain sight, but we don't know where to look for them, or how to look for them, or how to hire them, and what slight accommodations they need in order to be successful.
So this book took 4 years of research. I'm curious, I know my own research was kind of fascinating for me. I dug into it for a while, and I need to figure out, how do I communicate all I've learned? What was the most surprising thing you discovered in your research that went into your book?
A number of things. First of all, how incredibly productive and effective this kind of marginalized talent can be when you find them, make some minor accommodations, and bring them into your company. How hiring these folks can truly change your culture, your business, the way you view the world. We all carry around these unconscious biases that we have about folks who, well, could that person with autism, really work with me? Or could that person with limited English skills really add value in our business? Can we accommodate their need for translation? And just the stories of these people. A quick story. This company, MDI, Minnesota Diversified Industries in Minneapolis, hires, as about half its workforce is people with disabilities. And the operations manager there one day said, we had a snowstorm recently, and I had employees calling up saying, I had an employee call up saying, boss, I've got a 4-wheel drive, but I don't think I can make it through this 2 inches of snow and this snowstorm. Meanwhile, I knew that I had workers who had disabilities who were going to take 2 buses and go through a 2-hour commute to get to work, and they were going to show up. That's one of the examples of the kind of inspiration you hear of the obstacles people have overcome, or traumatic past. A couple of women who grew up in refugee camps for 10 years with very limited food and are now working as training managers in U.S. companies, having mastered enough English, and just have this unbelievable commitment and drive to succeed and to create a better life for their families.
I'm curious, your book is about, you say you love to tell stories. And I'm curious, what story in your book was one of the ones that are most compelling for you?
There are so many. because I have a dozen. The book is built on 10 case studies of businesses that have committed to hiring from these talent pools and what they've learned from the process. That's the most important, what they've learned from the process of hiring. But it also has a dozen profiles of individuals who've overcome great obstacles to um, find sustainable employment. Uh, and one example would be Muso, this woman who came from Myanmar, which used to be Burma, who was family became refugees because they were being persecuted by the government in their country. And this young girl, when she was a young girl, fled with her mother and her other children to a refugee camp in a neighboring country. And she spent 10 years in a refugee camp uh, with barely enough food to get by. And finally, at about age 18, she got permission to move to the US. This is very normal immigration practices. Uh, and she came with her husband. She had a young husband, they had a child, and they came and they moved to Akron, Ohio. And a friend, somebody from her home country, got her a job working in a motel, cleaning rooms for $6 an hour, 6.75 an hour, which is a totally unsustainable wage even for her. So here's a young woman. She finally finds an opportunity in this bakery, Main Street Gourmet, and they hire her as their first foreign-born employee, and they just dive in. And she has very little English, but she just is so determined to succeed and to learn English. And she's speaking when she's on the job. When she says thank you. Initially, people thought she was using the F word because the accent was so bad, and they had to gently correct her and say, no, that's not the way you say thank you. And so she's spent her career learning, mastering English, and she's become the training manager in this company, which now has 35% of its employees are foreign born. And she was the first one. And she now trains and the new employees coming in, but just seeing she and her husband have bought a house. Just the stories, the perseverance is just so powerful and so impressive.
As I looked at the list of employees you're trying to kind of promote as the hidden talent, each of those come with misconceptions. So I'm just kind of curious, what are some of the biggest misconceptions employers had to overcome when they're dealing with, say, people who were incarcerated before? And then maybe talk about, the unique challenges that those who were refugees dealt with as well.
Sure. Most of us have this real unconscious bias about, you're going to ask me to work next to someone with a criminal past who might have gone to prison for a drug addiction, for crimes committed when they were addicted to drugs only to support their crime, or they might have a 10-year-old weapons charge from when they were 19 years old and they spent a few years in prison, and you're going to assume that these people, I can't work with these people, that I'm scared of the risk. Well, the research shows the chances of them committing another crime are incredibly low once they have, particularly the more time that's elapsed from their crime, their offense to today. So timing is a huge factor, but that sense of fear of the unknown is really what it is. Because in each of these cases, we found personally in our family, the more time we spent with these folks, they're just folks. They have often gone through incredible trauma.
Right.
At youth. With dysfunctional families, lack of food. Lack of resources, lack of role modeling of parents who had jobs or were working. So there are a lot of variables.
So let's talk about refugees. That's a hot topic, no matter what side of the coin you fall on. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about hiring refugees?
First of all, finding them. Finding refugees who are work ready, who have enough support to be work ready, figuring out what jobs they can do for you. I mean, it's important. Obviously, you're not going to put a refugee or again, we use these terms, refugee, immigrant, asylee. These are technical terms that have to do with one's immigration status. And I'm assuming, by the way, in my book, I only write about people who are legally authorized to work in the U.S. I'm not talking about undocumented workers.
Sure.
That is just too complicated an issue, and there's all kinds of legal issues around that.
Exactly.
So I'm talking about people who came here, who followed the rules, and who came here and are looking for work. One is, figuring out what jobs they can do, where we can use them, where they won't need extensive English. Again, for example, you don't put them in a customer-facing role. They might be working in a warehouse or in some back office position or in a factory. It's underestimating what support they'll need. It's not realizing how dedicated they will be if they come with just enough enough background and support. One of the things that we have to understand is when you hire people from other cultures, other countries, they come with a set of expectations. I'll give you a simple example. In Nepal, this one bakery I studied, commercial bakery I studied, ended up hiring a bunch of Nepalese. Well, there are very strict rules in this bakery about mixing different products because of allergies. Like you can't have nuts in anywhere near, in a certain part of the machinery used to produce the products because of allergies. Well, in Nepal, there are no allergies. They don't have these kinds of peanut allergies. That's not in their culture. So these folks had to be educated about that. So it's understanding what sort of cultural nuances or accommodations we have to do. But again, Keith, the real answer here is just trying and diving in and just taking a chance. It's sort of, again, the fear of the unknown. Why do we resist, or what do we have to overcome in hiring refugees or immigrants? Is because we don't know. We don't know the benefits they can bring to the business.
I love that. I've talked to a lot of people who work in business and entrepreneurs and those likes, and they always tell me that the strongest organizations are the ones that are inclusive and have a diverse workforce. Can you kind of talk about how do you convince people, because you've taught organizational change at Babson College, and how is inclusivity really making the workforce stronger and the company stronger?
Well, first of all, it gives you staff. Again, given the workforce demographics, retiring baby boomers, the shrinking talent pool of young people coming out of college, because we forget the fertility rate in this country, and this is an international problem, has dramatically shrunk since the Great Recession in 2008. We've been having fewer babies here in the United States. So we have fewer young people graduating from high school now and college going into the workforce. And then I mentioned the problem of men, just fewer working age men in the workforce today. So for a variety of reasons. So the workforce is shrinking, and we need to recognize that. So being inclusive gives us a better chance of having the staffing we need. One of the benefits that the companies I studied in my book or wrote about in my book was they said we couldn't staff the second shift. We couldn't find people. But by opening themselves up to hiring refugees or immigrants, they suddenly had a new talent pool they could bring in for that evening shift, late afternoon evening shift that they couldn't find. So that's one. Two is sort of just opening yourself up and feeling better. This company, Classic Wire, a medical products manufacturer in California, hires 7 people at once with autism, with high-level autism, who had been trained as CNC machinists. And these were wonderful stories. And this was a huge transition. The leadership there would tell you, we didn't know anything about autism. We didn't know what it was or what the constraints were. And they've now become core in our culture, and they've made us a better place. They're really good. They're really good workers. They're a little quirky sometimes, but we manage that, and we have coaching for it. And gosh, it's just made us, we just feel better about ourselves. And this, by the way, let me stress, this isn't about, I hope you can tell I have no passion for this.
No, you're kind of hiding
it. They're just amazing, and they just bring so much to the business. It's just incredible.
If you were in a small or advising a small or mid-sized business who wanted to start this journey and they feel overwhelmed just by the possibility, give us kind of a practical first step you'd recommend for them.
Sure. First of all, figure out what jobs you have that are really hard to fill. You probably know this, or where you have constant turnover. Get a handle on what those jobs are, and then look for local partners. Look for organizations in your region who work with one of these groups, whether it's formerly incarcerated, people with disabilities, or immigrants, and connect with them and see what they have in terms of a talent of folks. Talk to them. Start to develop a relationship with these agencies, these partners, so that you can find. I'll give you a quick example. A painter, local painting company here in Massachusetts, just employ 8 people. This owner can't find people who want to be trained as painters. These are people painting high-end residential properties. Very fussy work, and he needs people who will show up and do the work and who are trainable. And he went to the local. He finally, somewhat in desperation, he went to a local shelter, which was sheltering folks who had come to this country. This was about a year ago, reasonably soon. And he told the shelter manager, "I'm looking for painters. Do you have anybody who I could interview?" He interviewed a couple of people. He had used Google Translate on his phone to translate with them, and he ended up hiring 2 of them, and he had them at work within a week after they were there. So sometimes I think local businesses think it's going to be too complicated to get started. So find a partner, find somebody who's working with these folks, and start a conversation. But ask hard questions. I'm very clear about this. You've got to be skeptical as an employer. I want to be super clear. Not everyone in these pools, I'm not saying every formerly incarcerated person with a disability, or immigrant is right for you or for the jobs you have. We're looking to find the diamonds in the rough here, the people in those talent pools who can be great employees. I'm on the side of the employer here. I'm not pretending everybody coming out of prison is going to be a fabulous employee. In fact, I'm very clear it's a spectrum. And there's a bunch that are going to be great. There's some that are going to need a little extra help and coaching. We're going to be really good if you're a little patient. But there's a group down the other end who you just don't want to touch. So, who just aren't ready. They haven't grown enough and decided to change their life direction. So that it's tricky, but it's always a spectrum. And I'm trying to help employers find the potential employees who can be great, and there are lots of them out there.
That's great. If you're advising an HR department who are trying to support the workers that are coming on board, what are some best practices you can help HR to go, okay, here's how you support these new workers you're trying to bring into the company?
Well, I'd say first is coaching. You have to recognize that the reason, Keith, if this was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Right.
Every employer would be doing it. We wouldn't be having this conversation. But I am very clear, hiring people who have to overcome barriers to employment is not simple. It takes some extra work. And so you need to up your coaching game. And that may mean getting coaches from outside who work for these agencies, who work with these folks all the time, and maybe bringing them in. I see that particularly with folks with disabilities. There are just some fabulous coaches out there, but you need a good coach and someone who knows how to push and knows how to back off and knows, and that's one of the things that employers learn and people in HR learn is how much we can push folks. At Classic Wire, when they first brought in these CNC machinists who had level 1 autism, the managers they said, admitted to me, we treated them as handicapped or disabled because we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how much we could push them. And their coach said, hey, hold them accountable. They got to show up. They're adults. There are things you have to bend on a little bit, but by and large, you don't let them just do what they want. You have rules and processes, and they're expected to follow them. So it'd be that coaching piece would be the one thing, and then one other would be don't miscommunicate longer onboarding. It might take a little longer in all three of these groups to get them on board and get them productive, but don't confuse that with productivity, and because taking a little bit of time on board to get someone on board who will then stay and won't be leaving in 3 to 6 months, like a lot of your other new hires, is worth a lot of money. So sometimes it takes a little longer to onboard.
I love it. I love to ask my guests this question too, David. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want to be helpful. I want to make a difference. I want to help businesses and societies, cultures address hard problems and solve hard problems. And I recognize a lot of problems are really difficult. And that's why I engage with this one. It isn't like you're saying, oh, this is simple. We'll just do this, this, and this. No, there's tension and challenges. And I want to be helpful in sharing lessons about that will help people lead more fulfilling, productive, loving lives. And ultimately, as we get older, we all seem to say, I want to be remembered as kind. I really do. I want to be kind. I want to be known as gently pushing people towards solutions to challenging problems or confronting them. But I want to be kind.
That's great. So in season 6 of the podcast, we're doing something new. We have a surprise question. So pick a number between 1 and 3 for your surprise question.
1.
All right. A lot of people pick 1. I noticed that about people.
Oh, they do?
I do.
I was thinking I'll be different and I'll pick 1 because nobody picks 1.
So here's your question. Would you rather be the best player on a horrible team or the worst player on a great team?
I'd rather be the worst player on a great team. Because I can learn from others. It's not about my ego being the best. No, I'd want to be, that's a great question. I'd want to be learning from others, and I'd want my team to succeed. And I love working with great people. That's very, very rewarding. And it's, in fact, one of the keys to life, I think, is, our relationships, of course, and the quality of relationships we have.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite questions. I like that one. So where can people find your book and learn more about the work that you're doing?
The book is Hidden Talent, How to Employ Refugees, the Formerly Incarcerated, and People with Disabilities. It's available from your local favorite online bookseller, or you can order it from a bookstore. You can read the introductory chapter by going to my book's website, which is read, R-E-A-D, hiddentalent.com. All one word, read, R-E-A-D, hiddentalent.com. You can go there, you can download the introduction, so you get a sense of the framing of the book. And again, this is all about, I can't emphasize this enough, this is not charity. We're not doing this just to be nice. we're doing this because it makes good business sense. It's economically, it's a win for the business, it's a win for the individuals, and it's ultimately a win for society and communities. So there are a lot of advantages here, but it's not simple. So you can, again, read hiddentalent.com or just Google the title of the book, or you can also go on my website and you can email me. You can reach me there. I have another website called smartworkforcestrategies.com, which is even more information than you'd ever want about my work.
So what's next for you? What's upcoming projects are you working on?
Well, Keith, I'm trying to build bridges.
There you go.
I'm trying to build bridges right now. I'm working on a project here in Massachusetts, trying to build bridges between the state probation department and employers. As I'm continue to do research in this area, I'm an inveterate researcher. So literally every week I'm having interviews with people in the field who are trying to say, what are you seeing? What's happening? Of course, since the book was published in January, I have, the immigration issue was blown up. Of course, that's become much more complicated. That would be a whole other podcast. But, it's heartbreaking to see, but it's, and complicated, very complicated. But I'm trying to build bridges between those agencies or those organizations working with these different talent pools, supporting them, and employers, helping, how do we bring those two groups together to help educate employers about the potential here. And I'm continually looking for opportunities to do that, to help employers get more confident and comfortable in tapping into these talent pools over time, because the talent, even if right now when we're recording this, we're having a little dip in terms of employment and unemployment numbers, these challenges are going to come back for employers. The shortage of workers is going to be with us for the next 2 decades. It's the demographics are immutable, so we have to look for solutions there.
Well, David, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your passion, and I could tell your passion for this topic and for the employers and the employees who are out there and the talent that we're sometimes overlooking. And I just really thank you for helping us to look beyond the surface and look deeper at what really is right in front of our face sometimes in terms of the people that could really impact our corporations and our companies. So thank you for the work that you did. And people go out and get Hidden Talent, leave a review for David on the website, because that's how people find the book even more. So we really hope you go do and check it out. So thanks again.
Thank you, Keith. It was my pleasure, and thanks for the great work you do in bringing people together to think about building bridges. It's really an honor to spend time with you and to share my ideas. I hope it was helpful.
It was helpful. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Do you know that most entrepreneurs hit a revenue ceiling and have no idea why? They're working harder, spending more money, running more ads, but revenue stays flat. My friend, Dr. Noah St. John, calls this the invisible break. He's giving our listeners a free revenue ceiling audit to help you see what's really holding you back. You'll get a free 30-day membership to Noah Bot, giving you access to Dr. Noah's 30 years of experience to help you reach your next level. But hurry, because there's only 50 available this month. So if you're tired of being stuck at the same revenue level and want to finally break through, get your free revenue ceiling audit at drnoahvault.com in the affiliate link that'll be listed in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at bkeithhaney and on Getter and Twitter at RevHeadpin. Thanks again, and tune in next time.